For 5 years, Josephine secretly waited for Damien to make her his wife. Then, at a crowded ball, she heard him tell everyone that he was single and unattached. He had no idea she was there. Josephine didn't confront him. She didn't cry. She simply walked away and made a decision that would change both their lives. Days later, when Damien finally realized she was serious, he tried to make her stay. But Josephine looked at the man who had kept her waiting for 5 years and said, "You are finally ready to choose me, but I am no longer waiting." What happened next left Damien wishing he had made that choice years earlier. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's get into the story. Josephine had been raised in a wealthy and respectable household where her opinion mattered. Her family did not possess the vast fortune of Duke Nathaniel's family, but they had enough to give their daughter an excellent education, a comfortable life, and the freedom to make her own decisions. Her parents, Lord Simon Penhall and Lady Augusta, were protective without being controlling. When Josephine chose Damien 5 years earlier, they accepted him because they believed he was sincere. Damien was ambitious and determined to take control of his father's company. He had a difficult road ahead of him, and Josephine understood the pressure he carried. Their relationship remained private from the beginning. They never appeared together at public events as a couple, and Damien never introduced her as the woman in his life. Only Josephine's parents, Damien's closest friends, and a handful of trusted people knew the truth. Josephine accepted the secrecy because Damien had given her a reason to believe it would not last forever. One evening, when they were alone, Damien had taken her hand and said, "When I take control of the company, I won't have to hide you anymore. I will make our relationship public, and I will marry you." She had believed every word. While Damien worked toward that goal, Josephine quietly became part of the support system behind him. She was educated, organized, and perceptive, so he often brought documents home for her to review. She helped sort correspondence, kept track of important matters, and sometimes noticed details he had overlooked. She never accompanied him to negotiations or interfered with his authority. Her help remained between them. Damien valued it, even if he rarely stopped to consider how much she was giving. Josephine's parents watched the relationship with cautious affection. They knew their daughter loved him, and they knew Damien had promised marriage. Still, her mother occasionally reminded her, "A promise should lead somewhere, Josephine. Don't let waiting become your whole life." Josephine always smiled. He will keep his word. Then Damien finally took control of the family business. Josephine thought the moment they had waited for had arrived. Instead, Damien asked her for patience again. Taking control, he explained, was only the beginning. He needed to establish his authority, earn the confidence of the board, strengthen his relationships with the company's senior figures, and prove that his father's decision to trust him had been justified. Josephine listened. "You said things would change once you took over?" "They will," Damien assured her. "Just give me time." She agreed. She had already waited 3 years. Another little while seemed reasonable, but 1 year became 2. During those years, Josephine received other marriage proposals. Her parents discussed them with her privately, never forcing her to accept. One proposal came from Duke Nathaniel's family, an alliance that would have been advantageous and personally respectable. Josephine declined. Her father asked her once, "Are you certain?" She nodded. "Damien has promised me a future." Her parents accepted her decision because they trusted her judgment, even when they worried about the cost of waiting. Then came the night that changed everything. An elite ball brought together influential families, prominent social figures, and the people whose opinions carried weight in their world. Josephine attended with her family, while Damien arrived separately. He had no idea she was there. During dinner, conversation turned toward marriage and the future of the younger generation. Someone asked Damien about his personal situation. He answered without hesitation, "I am single and unattached, and no plan to settle down soon." The conversation moved on. Damien thought nothing of it. Josephine heard every word. For several seconds, she remained perfectly still. The man she had loved for 5 years had just stood before an entire room and described himself as though she did not exist. She thought about the promise he had made before taking control of the company. She thought about the extra years she had given him afterward. She thought about the proposals she had refused because she believed his word was worth waiting for. And suddenly, she understood. Damien was not waiting for the right moment to choose her. He had become comfortable knowing she would keep waiting. Josephine quietly excused herself and left the gathering. She did not approach him. She did not send a letter. She did not ask him to explain himself. For the first time in 5 years, she made a decision without considering what Damien wanted. If he wanted the world to believe he was single, she would no longer live as the woman waiting privately for him to admit otherwise. Inside the ballroom, Damien continued his evening, completely unaware that Josephine had heard him. He had no idea that the woman he was certain would always be there had just decided to stop waiting. Several days after the ball, Damien went to Josephine's family home, expecting the welcome he had known for years. He had no reason to believe anything had changed permanently. In his mind, their disagreement at the ballroom had not even happened yet. Josephine received him without warmth. The difference was immediate. Damien studied her face. "What is wrong with you?" "Nothing." He knew her too well to believe that answer, but he could not understand the reason for her coldness. Her parents were nearby when he arrived, and they noticed the tension at once. They had already seen the hurt their daughter carried home from the ball. Rather than interfere, they quietly left the two of them alone. Damien waited until they were out of earshot. "Josephine, if something is troubling you, tell me." She looked at him for a long moment. "Why did you tell everyone you were single?" His expression changed. "So you heard that?" "I was there." Damien exhaled. "You know what I meant. Our relationship has always been private. I wasn't going to discuss my personal affairs at a dinner table." "That is not what I asked." "What do you want me to say?" Josephine's voice remained calm. "I want you to explain why, after 5 years, I am still something you have to hide." Damien frowned. "I never said I was ashamed of you." "No, you simply never said you were with me." He had no immediate answer. Josephine continued. "You told me everything would change once you took control of the company. You took control. I waited for you to keep your word. Then you told me you needed time to establish yourself. I gave you that too. I was trying to protect what I had built. You were always building something, Damien, and I was always waiting for the day when there would finally be room for me in it. That isn't fair. I turned down other proposals because I believed you." Damien's jaw tightened. "I never asked you to do that." Josephine looked at him with quiet disbelief. "You didn't have to. You knew I was waiting." He tried to soften his tone. "We have had disagreements before. You are angry now, but this will pass." That assumption hurt more than the argument itself. Even now, Damien believed her feelings were temporary. Josephine shook her head. You still don't understand. He stepped closer. Understand what? That I am tired of being patient for a man who keeps moving the finish line. Damien's pride took over. Do you even know how old you are? He asked. You think any man is going to want you after 5 years with me? Josephine went still. He continued, convinced he was making a practical point. A respectable man may not want a woman who has spent 5 years in a private relationship with another man. You have already given me years of your life. Don't act as though starting over will be easy. Josephine stared at him. In that moment, she understood something she had refused to see before. Damien did not understand what she had given him. He thought those years had reduced her choices. He thought she would be too afraid to begin again. He had mistaken her loyalty for dependence. She reached for the small case containing the gifts he had given her over the years. She placed it in his hands. Take them. Damien looked down at it. What are you doing? Returning what belongs to you. Josephine. She met his eyes. Watch me live without you. There was no shouting, no tears, no attempt to make him regret his words. That quietness unsettled him more than anger would have. He tried to speak again, but she had already turned away. Damien left the house still believing that time would change her mind. He had known Josephine for 5 years. He could not imagine that she had finally reached a decision he could not reverse. When Josephine's parents returned, they found her standing quietly in the room. Her mother took her hand. Are you certain? Josephine nodded. I am. Her father looked at her carefully. Then we will stand behind you. She took a slow breath. I don't want to reject another future because I am waiting for Damien to become ready. Neither parent argued. They had watched her wait long enough. For the first time, Josephine was not waiting for Damien's next promise. She was ready to decide what came next for herself. Now, for the first time, Josephine sounded certain. Then don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. Her mother said, whatever you decide from here, we will support you. They brought Duke Nathaniel's proposal forward again. Josephine agreed to meet him. Nathaniel was familiar to her. Their families had known each other for years, and they had grown up in the same social circles. His family was considerably wealthier. But his interest in Josephine had never depended on the alliance between their households. When the possibility of their marriage had first been discussed, Nathaniel had welcomed it because he had already cared for her. He also knew enough about her past to understand that she was not entering this meeting without hesitation. During one of their first private conversations, Nathaniel was direct. If you are only here because Damien hurt you, tell me now. Josephine looked at him. And if I am? I will understand, he said. But I will not marry a woman who is hoping another man will come back. There was no bitterness in his voice. Josephine respected him for that. She told him about the 5 years she had spent with Damien, the promises that had kept her waiting, and the future she had once believed they would have. She did not hide how difficult it had been to walk away. Nathaniel listened. He did not criticize Damien, and he did not ask Josephine to prove that she had forgotten him. Instead, he gave her the chance to know him without pressure. Their meetings continued. Josephine soon discovered that Nathaniel had admired qualities in her that had nothing to do with her family's name. He respected her education, her judgment, and the quiet way she handled responsibility. He understood that she was accustomed to making decisions for herself. Nathaniel also learned about the role Josephine had played in Damien's life. She had never worked for Damien's company or accompanied him into business negotiations. But she had quietly helped him behind closed doors with correspondence, documents, organization, and matters that required another thoughtful opinion. Nathaniel never mocked her for having given so much to a man who failed to recognize its value. Instead, he told her, "What you gave him was given freely. You should never be ashamed of loving someone sincerely." Those words stayed with her. With Nathaniel, Josephine did not have to keep waiting for a promise to become real. He made his intentions clear without asking her to earn certainty. Still, she did not rush her decision. Her parents gave her room to choose. "We want you happy," her mother told her, "not simply married." Josephine eventually accepted Nathaniel's proposal. She did not do it to make Damien jealous. She did not do it because Nathaniel was wealthier. She chose him because, after getting to know him for herself, she could see a future beside him. When Damien heard about the engagement, he refused to believe it was final. He assumed Josephine was trying to make him react. After all, he had spent years believing she would wait for him. He could not accept that she had reached a decision without leaving a door open for him. He still expected her to change her mind. Damien's uncle Victor knew nothing about any of this. He had never known Damien was secretly involved with Josephine. Damien had kept that relationship outside his family's knowledge. So Victor had no reason to connect Josephine to the change in Damien's personal life. Victor had his own concern. For years, he had believed Damien's father should have trusted him with the family business. Now Damien's father was preparing to strengthen Damien's authority formally. Once that happened, Victor's opportunity to take control would become far more difficult. He decided not to wait. Victor targeted a major shipment for an important client. Through a subordinate he trusted, he arranged for inferior materials to replace those that had been approved. He then manipulated the records so the authorization appeared to have passed through Damien's office. The shipment failed inspection. The client threatened to cancel the contract. Damien was held responsible because the paperwork appeared to carry his authority. Victor seized the opportunity before Damien's father and the board. If Damien cannot protect a major contract under his supervision, he argued, why should his authority be strengthened? Damien knew he had never approved the substitution. He studied the documents himself. Something was wrong. The authorization trail looked legitimate, but one part of the process did not match how his office normally handled such approvals. Someone had deliberately used his authority against him. Damien ordered the complete records pulled. This time, he wasn't looking for an excuse. He was looking for the person who had tried to destroy his credibility. Damien began with the shipment records. He went through every document connected to the order, comparing the original specifications with the materials that had actually been delivered. The substitution had been carefully concealed, but the authorization trail gave him somewhere to start. He questioned the employees who had handled the shipment. Most were nervous, but none wanted to accuse anyone without proof. Eventually, Damien reached the subordinate whose name appeared on the approval. The man insisted that he had followed instructions. Whose instructions? He hesitated. Damien placed the documents in front of him. If you were acting on my authority, tell me exactly what I authorized. The employee lowered his eyes. Victor had already warned him that speaking could cost him his position. For days, he kept quiet, hoping the matter would disappear. It did not. Damien continued pressing until the man finally broke. Your uncle ordered me to do it, he admitted. He told me to replace the approved materials and make the paperwork look as though the decision had come from your office. Damien remained silent. The employee continued, frightened now that the truth was out. He said the shipment had to fail. He wanted the board to believe you were responsible. That was enough to confirm Damien's suspicion. He confronted Victor with the evidence. Victor did not deny it for long. His resentment had been building for years. "Your father should have given me the company," he said. "I spent years proving myself, and you inherited the position because you were his son. You tried to destroy my reputation to take it. I created one failure. The board was already questioning whether you deserved greater authority." Victor believed he had finally found the opening he needed. Instead, Damien brought the employee's confession, the altered records, and the shipment documents before his father and the appropriate company authorities. The evidence was examined. Victor's manipulation was exposed. His attempt to undermine Damien failed, and Damien retained his position. But the victory left him thinking about something far less comfortable. For years, Josephine had quietly helped him manage the details surrounding his work. She had sorted correspondence, organized information, reviewed documents, and remembered matters he might otherwise have had to handle alone. She had never interfered with his authority. Her contribution had simply been there whenever he needed it. He had grown so accustomed to that support that he rarely noticed it. Now she was gone. There was no one waiting for him at the end of a difficult day with the information already organized. No familiar voice asking whether he had considered a detail he had overlooked. No one quietly helping him prepare for what came next. Damien realized that Josephine had given him far more than affection. He had treated her presence as permanent. Meanwhile, Josephine was preparing for her wedding. News of Damien's struggle with Victor eventually reached her through family acquaintances. Her mother watched her carefully when the subject came up. "Do you want to postpone anything?" Josephine shook her head. "No. Damien has to resolve his own affairs. I have made my decision." Her parents respected it. Soon afterward, Josephine married Nathaniel. Their marriage strengthened the relationship between two influential families. But Nathaniel's feelings for her were genuine. He had wanted Josephine long before she became his wife. The day after the wedding, Nathaniel noticed that she seemed uncertain about the new arrangement. He did not pressure her. "If you would rather have your own room," he said, "I will respect that. You have been through enough changes. I don't want you to feel that marriage gives me the right to demand anything from you." Josephine looked at him with gratitude. That night, they slept separately. The following evening, Nathaniel came to her room. He stood quietly for a moment before speaking. "There is something I've been meaning to ask you." Josephine waited. "I know you loved Damien for 5 years. I cannot erase that history, and I don't want to pretend I can." He paused. "But can you make a place for me in your heart? Sometimes I wonder whether, when everything is quiet, you might still choose him over me." Josephine finally understood. The Duke, who always seemed so composed, had been carrying his own fear. She stepped closer. "Perhaps you have been keeping your insecurities to yourself for too long." Before he could answer, Josephine leaned forward and kissed him. The awkwardness between them softened. Nathaniel understood her answer without needing another explanation. That night, they became husband and wife in the truest sense. Not because their families had arranged the marriage, but because Josephine had freely chosen to let him into the part of her life she had once reserved for Damien. For Nathaniel, that was enough. For Josephine, it was the beginning of something that belonged entirely to them. The first weeks of Josephine's marriage brought a warmth she had not expected. Nathaniel remained attentive without becoming possessive, and his mother welcomed Josephine into the family with genuine affection. She treated her with the same respect she gave her own children, never making her feel like an outsider or reminding her that the marriage had begun as a family alliance. Before long, Josephine understood that Nathaniel's mother had truly come to love her. Nathaniel's own feelings were no longer uncertain either. Their marriage had become something personal, built on trust rather than the agreement that had brought their families together. Then Damien came. He had learned that Josephine was now married, and this time there was no engagement to dismiss or possibility of postponement. She had become Nathaniel's wife. He went to see her without pretending that he had come to offer congratulations. "I was wrong," he said. "I should have married you years ago. I'm ready now, Josephine. I love you. Leave him and come back to me." Josephine looked at him quietly. She believed him. For the first time, she could see that Damien was not simply trying to win an argument. He had finally understood what he had lost. That made her answer harder, not easier. "You are finally ready to choose me," she said. "But I am no longer waiting." Damien reminded her of the 5 years they had shared. "I remember every one of them," Josephine replied. "They mattered to me, but they cannot erase what happened during those years." She had waited while he took control of his father's company. She had supported him while he built his position. She had turned down other proposals because she believed the future he promised was coming. And when he finally achieved what he had claimed he needed, he still asked her for more time. Now she had a husband who had chosen her without asking her to remain in uncertainty. Damien struggled to accept it. "I can give you everything now." Josephine shook her head. "You could have given me what I needed when I was standing beside you." She did not insult him. She did not punish him. She simply refused to return to a life she had already decided to leave. Josephine returned to Nathaniel. Her parents stood firmly behind her decision. Nathaniel's mother welcomed her home with the same affection she had shown from the beginning. And Josephine knew she was no longer entering a marriage that belonged only to two families. She was part of a family that had chosen to love her. Not long afterward, Josephine discovered that she was pregnant. The news filled Nathaniel with happiness. For Josephine, it made the life she had chosen feel even more real. She was no longer looking backward at what might have been. She was carrying a future that had nothing to do with Damien's promises. Months later, at a public gathering, Damien saw her with Nathaniel. She was genuinely happy. Josephine noticed him, but there was no anger in her expression. She did not try to make him jealous or show him what he had lost. She simply continued walking beside her husband. Damien finally understood. Nathaniel had not taken Josephine from him. He had lost her when he became certain she would always wait. Josephine had loved Damien deeply, but she had learned that love did not require her to surrender her future. Choosing Nathaniel was not about finding a richer or more powerful man. It was about choosing a life in which she was valued, acknowledged, and loved without having to beg for certainty. Never mistake someone's patience for permission to take them for granted. A person can love you deeply and still walk away when waiting for you begins to cost them their happiness. If you were Josephine, would you have forgiven Damien when he finally came back? Or would you have chosen the man who was ready to choose you from the beginning? Tell me what you would have done in the comments, and subscribe for the next story.